What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a mock draft for the 2025 NBA draft, and I kind of held off on making this after the March Madness season, just so we could see which players enter the draft. With NIL, you don't really know who's going to enter and stay with how college basketball is right now, and obviously the play-in as well dictates which teams are in the lottery. So we're going to do a lottery sim to help figure this out. Let's see who gets number one. It will be the 76ers. This is about as a nightmarish. We're not going to do this top. We're not going to. Rockets and Sixers with the top two picks. It's just. That's how. Okay, yeah. This works. So with the first pick, the Rockets moved up, and it's not even a question. It's Cooper Flag, and I'm not going to go in depth in it. If you want to learn about Cooper Flag, there's millions of people who have talked about him. Phenomenal defender, improved throughout the season, was the best player in college basketball. Not much else to say. Now we got the Jazz, who I've kind of gotten higher on Dylan Harper as the year's gone on, but the Jazz have some good guards, but I don't really think that stops you from drafting Dylan Harper, and I'm a Jazz fan, but they do need this lead kind of superstar guy, and I think Dylan Harper, outside of Cooper Flag, has the highest chance to be that, and he's kind of, maybe you project him to be Cade Cunningham-esque, kind of, and you've seen what Cade has done for the Pistons, and you kind of hope you get a similar thing if you're the Jazz. Now the Wizards, who are disappointed in falling, they're going to go Ace Bailey, and for me it's kind of just best player available. The Wizards are kind of in the same spot where they have a lot of interesting young players, but not a true superstar young player that you think can be a star later. Ace Bailey is that for me. A really good shot maker, really good size, 6'10", needs to add weight, but I kind of think of a young Jason Tatum when watching him, something like that, kind of Brandon Ingram, that type of mold of score first wing who is a tough shot maker, and I'm really interested to see with this Wizards core that I think they do need a primary bucket getter, because Bub isn't really a lead guy like that, and then Sarr isn't either, so to be able to get someone that can be a tough shot maker and create off the dribble would be huge for them. The Sixers, who they're just in such a weird spot, I don't really know what they're going to do this offseason. Are they going to trade Embiid? Are they going to try to find a trade for Paul George somehow? I don't know, but it's just going to be best player available, which is VJ Edgecombe, and I think he fits pretty well with what they have going on. You can roll a lineup of Maxey, McCain, VJ, Paul George, and Joel Embiid. Then have Grimes as your sixth man, but VJ is kind of this defensive-minded, super athletic, lengthy, probably a wing in the NBA. He's listed as shooting guard, but I think he'll be a small forward / shooting guard, and he kind of reminds me of young Donovan Mitchell. His shooting improved throughout the season. Conference play in the Big 12 was when he took strides the most, in my opinion. And yeah, I think you bet on the athleticism and the frame of him. The Hornets, who they always feel like they have a good amount of talent on their team, but they can't put it all together. So it's tough to figure out what they need here. And then the Mark Williams trade thing really complicates things, just in my opinion. Because Derek Queen is certainly in the mix here. But I'm going to go with Trey Johnson, who, once again, best player available for me. And I think this Hornets team has shown flashes defensively, and I think Trey Johnson can be a legit number one in the NBA. 20 points in college in the SEC, which is the best was the best conference. So that's very encouraging. I think you really want to see the efficiency improved and him become more of a playmaker, but if those two things improve, he could legit be a superstar in the league, kind of Zach LaVine, think that type of mold. Maybe not superstar, but all-star quality player, which if you're the Hornets, you're in a talent acquisition phase, in my opinion. Now the Pelicans, who there are just so many teams like in here, like the Hornets and the Sixers and the Pelicans are just in such weird spots because you have really talented players, but for whatever reason it's not coming together. Is Dejounte Murray really in their young core? I'm not sure. I really like Trey Murphy a lot, and I like Herbert Jones, and to me, those are the only two that you really consider as your core. You probably maybe throw Zion in there. I don't know. I am going to go with debating Derek Queen or Jeremiah Fears, and I think I'm going to go Derek Queen. And I know Yves Missy has had a really good rookie year, but I'm not sure if you really think he's a starting center in the NBA. If you want to be a good team, I think Derek Queen could be, and me personally, I'm more bought into Derek Queen developing a jump shot down the road. I know he didn't really shoot at all in college, but I think the form is there. And if you watch March Madness, you saw the fading mid range against Colorado State to win the game, and I think you bet on this potential. And he's a super good rebounder and a really talented scorer, and I think the playmaking is really encouraging as well. The biggest thing that people have concerns about is the defense and the shooting, and I don't think the defense is phenomenal by any means, but I think he's better than people give him credit for, especially as a shot blocker. The Nets, who are another team that's just in a talent acquisition phase, and for me, it's just best player available, which is Jeremiah Fears for me, who was one of the best freshmen in the best conference in the SEC, which you buy into, and he's a super gifted scorer, and I think the playmaking is a lot better than the numbers suggest. He had that really big game. I can't remember who they played, but lost in the first round, but had a massive game in March, which you love to see young players step up in big games. But this is kind of a do-it-all in terms of offense. He's, in my opinion, a really three-level scorer. Really good quick step, or really good quick first step, and finishes around the rim decently. I think, honestly, like, my biggest takeaways watching him is that the playmaking is good, and 4.1 assists doesn't indicate that, but I don't know what you hope he develops into. I mean, you hope he develops into your starting point guard on a good team, but I'm not sure if I have a player comp for him, but he's just, if I think the shooting could improve, and defensively he could as well, but I'm really high on him. The Raptors, who I really do like this young core quite a bit. They have a lot of really interesting players, but just looking at it, like, is Emmanuel Quickley really the point guard of the future for you? Is Scotty Barnes the point guard of the future for you? Is Jakob Poeltl your starting center? There are a lot of questions. I think they've really leaned into wanting to have a switchable, kind of small ball type of team. And for me, I think if they buy into that idea, then Colin Murray Boyles is the pick for them, who's this undersized big man who can put the ball on the floor, can score at the rim really well, and I think he's a good connector on offense in terms of passing the ball. Defensively is where he really shines, though. He's a phenomenal defender. If you expect him to hit a jump shot consistently, that's not what you want out of him. But I think the Raptors recently drafting Grady Dick and Jacoby Walter, who were both seen as kind of three-point shooters coming into the league. I think they've kind of addressed the shooting issue of this team, and Quickly's a good shooter, and Jameson Battle's a good shooter, Ingram's a good shooter. So I think kind of just how this Raptors team is formulated, they like a guy like him. Spurs at number 9, and for me, this is a pretty easy one, which is Con Knipple. I really like Con Knipple. I think he's probably the best shooter that is gonna go in the first round, and you really are impressed with his intelligence as a player too. I think defensively is going to be the biggest thing for him, and athletically, how does he compete with NBA athletes? I think he's smart on the defensive end, but I don't think he athletically holds up crazy well with athletic players, which the NBA obviously has. And I think there's a lot more off the dribble than he's given credit for as a playmaker, and he's really good at getting defenders off balance when in the paint and getting people to bite on pump fakes and all that. Just a really high IQ guy, and I think the numbers, especially playmaking, don't indicate how talented he is. Now the Trailblazers, who is another confusing team. I mean, Scoot Henderson, what do you consider him? He's shown some flashes. He's shown some non-flashes, certainly. And then Denny's been great for them. Toumani Kamaro's been fantastic for them. I think there's a lot of things to be excited for with this team. Donovan Clingan, in my opinion, is going to be a really good player. But considering the Scoot Henderson situation, I don't think they're going to go point guard. I think Rasheer Fleming makes a lot of sense for them, and I think he's kind of the prototypical power forward in the NBA, being a stretch forward player and being a really good defender, really athletic as well, good size. I think the biggest thing for him is going to be the off-the-dribble stuff. Can't really create for his own. He's going to be really reliant on other people to get him shots, but think of Taylor Hendricks, kind of. This athletic power forward who thrives defensively and can hit threes, which is a very valuable archetype in the NBA. And then throwing this into the Blazers core, you can run Scoot, Toumani, Denny, Fleming, and Clingan. And that has some, I would say, shooting concerns, but I think Fleming answers some of those concerns. Alright, if you're wondering why I'm wearing a different shirt now, I'm recording this on a different day, but now we've got the Mavericks, who obviously made the Luka trade a while back. It's really confusing what their future are. Are they trying to win now? I think they are. They've been big on this defense wins championships thing. So for me, I'm going to go, in my opinion, best player available, which is Carter Bryant, who's this big wing from Arizona, super athletic. I don't think he's declared for the draft yet when I'm recording it, and I guess there's a world he comes back to college, but I think the upside with him is very high. I think you kind of hope he develops into an Aaron Gordon type of player. Really developed as a defender, in my opinion. Has got great athleticism and length. I think the jump shot's good, but it definitely has room to grow. And then the biggest thing for him is going to be developing an off-the-dribble game. But he's one of my favorite players in this draft, and the Mavs have kind of shown a willingness to draft these wings with Omax Prosper and then signing guys like Najee Marshall or trading for him, I think. But I think just adding him to this core fits what they have going on. Now the Bulls, and I'm only really going to consider Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis in their young core. Just in my opinion, I don't really see anyone else fitting in that. So I'm going to go Asa Newell, who played for Georgia, was in the SEC, like I mentioned, the best conference last year. But he was super effective, averaged 15 points, 7 rebounds. He's a really good athlete. That's kind of the biggest thing with him, and has good size. Biggest thing is going to be the jump shot for him, and defensively. If he can develop both of those better, he's going to be a really good player. And I think with Giddey, who's a really good passer, having a lob threat like Asa Newell, who is like a freak athlete, you could see some really dynamic and momentum shifting plays, in my opinion. Now the Hawks, who desperately need a big man. I like Onyeka a lot, and I like Mohamed Gay, but even then you need a backup still. So I'm going to go Kaman Malwatch, who I'm not the biggest fan of. Think he needs to develop a lot. I think he's kind of far away. But as a shot blocker, he's really good. The biggest thing for him, like if you're drafting him, is he's 7'2" and a good athlete and has good length. And you're kind of just betting you can develop him. Super effective in college. I mean, 71% field goal percentage. And Trae Young is like the perfect player to play with if you're a developing young center. Just his ability to run the pick and roll and just be a phenomenal playmaker. And Trae really just commands the respect from the defense. So there's going to be a lot of times where they're doubling Trae, and he'll be able to pass it off to Malwatch in the paint to get an easy dunk. And then Jalen Johnson's another really advanced passer for his position as well. The Spurs, I don't really know, like, what they consider here, I think maybe this is a hot take, but Noah Essengay in the lottery, um, I think Spurs have shown a very much willing to draft foreign guys, and adding another one who is from France, like Wemby, I think this is one of the higher potential guys in the draft. I really buy the athleticism, and I think the jump shot looks good, and I think this is a guy that's going to rise into the draft boards over the process and going to have a good pre-draft process. But I really think you buy the athleticism and the jump shot developing, and he kind of just fits nicely with what the Spurs have going on. The Thunder, who are probably gonna win the championship. I don't know for sure, but they've been absolutely demolishing the Grizzlies. Like, oh my goodness, this is a tough series. And I think, just in my opinion, it's between Jace Richardson and Nick Clifford, and I'm gonna go Jace Richardson actually. And I think the Thunder's a great spot for him, because I think he's very talented and far along, and you don't really have to develop him much. I think he's kind of a plug-and-play guy. He's a really good shooter, and he's really crafty around the rim. I think defensively is probably where you want to see him improve, but the Thunder team is so just great defensively that you might not have to worry about it, and he'll kind of just tag along in developing there. But my biggest issue with him is he's not a point guard. Like, he averaged 2 assists in college, and what's the success rate with 6'3" shooting guards in the NBA? And it's not high, but I think the Thunder can play such a positionless game where you can surround him with big lineups and it doesn't really matter. And Topic and him off the bench together is very interesting to me. The Magic, okay, I think this is where Kasparis, his drop stops, and I'm not the biggest Kasparis guy. He's obviously a very highly ranked player for most people, but I loved Kasparis early on in the year. I really did, and over the year I got so concerned with the turnovers and some of the shot selection and the defense, and I really do worry about it. That being said, I think he is a good shooter. I think he's a better shooter than the percentages may show, but I think with the Magic specifically, they really need a lead point guard. They've kind of been searching for that with Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs, and both of them have been solid players, but neither of them has really stood out as a primary one. But Kasparis is a talented playmaker who he could shoot the ball, which is another thing the Magic really need. But I think the playmaking for him is going to be what draws in NBA teams. The Timberwolves, who are in a very competitive series with the Lakers, probably gonna be one of the best series of the first round. A lot of different ways you can go. Do you replace Gobert? Well, not replace him, but prepare for a future without Gobert as he is getting older. I think you draft a point guard here, and for me, I'm gonna go Ben Serif, and this is a guy I'm higher on to the consensus. A lefty out of Israel, just super crafty and fun player. I think his playmaking, his vision is very far along, and I think the shot definitely needs a lot of work. I think the form looks good, but the percentages aren't great, and finishing around the rim, he's really crafty. He gets the Manu comp quite a bit, and I can see it. Not sure he'll ever be Manu, but specifically with the Timberwolves, they need that primary guard, as Conley has shown. He's regressing quite a bit, and his time in the NBA is limited. And then Rob Dillingham isn't really a true point guard, so getting someone that can be a lead initiator really fits this team well. The Wizards, who got their first round pick from Memphis, they got Ace Bailey earlier. They're just going to snag best player available, which Jaeger Demon for me. And Jaeger Demon for me is the opposite of Kasparis, where Jaeger in the start of the season, well, I guess start of Big 12 more. But anyway, he had a really good March, and the biggest thing is going to be shooting the ball with him. The efficiency is bad. The jump shot doesn't look good, but the vision as a playmaker really is there, and you really do buy that. And I think at the Wizards' point, you like Bub, but you just draft best player available. Nets with their second first round pick. They're gonna have 4 this draft. There's no way they take all 4. Um, I'm just gonna go best player available for me, which is Thomas Sorber, who went to Georgetown, and Georgetown is on. I know it's like sounds like it's not a good program, but Georgetown is on the up and up. Like they'll be really good next year. But Thomas Sorber is a good replacement for Nick Claxton, who I think isn't gonna be part of the Nets for much longer. I didn't go as much in depth as I should have on Sorber, but one of the most talented shot blockers in the draft and has really good size and length, and you kind of buy that going forward for the Nets. Adding defense with their current core, and then you have Jeremiah Fears and Cam Thomas, and whatever they do with Cam Johnson, adding a good rim protector is always valuable in the NBA. Now, the Heat are in another tough spot, in my opinion, because is Tyler Hero your point guard going forward? And I'm not sure what they think. Quite honestly, I don't really think he's a point guard, but I think Davion Mitchell's been good. I think they're just such a weird team where they have some really quality young players, but don't really have a lead guy that can be the superstar going forward. I'm going to go Nolan Traore, who I don't necessarily love the fit, nor do I think the Heat would go for a developmental guy, really, but I think Nolan Traore does have a lot to like. I thought his ball handle was pretty good, and quite honestly, I haven't seen much of him, but he was one of the best or highest ranked players coming in, and I think if you're the Heat who kind of need that superstar, I'm not saying Nolan Traore will ever become a superstar, but I think if you're the Heat, you kind of need to take a swing, and that's what he is to me. Now the Jazz with their second first round pick, they got Dylan Harper with the first. And then I'm going to go Neat Clifford out of Colorado State, and I think this Jazz team was ranked the worst defensive team in history, both last year and this year, so they desperately need defense, and I think Neat Clifford could be that. They need these kind of hustle, do-it-all, gritty guys right now, and I think Neat Clifford is that. Shot the ball pretty good this year. I don't think the percentage was great, but I don't think you really worry about the jump shot. I think this is someone you plug and play, and kind of hope he's a Josh Hart going forward for you. The Hawks with their second first-round pick from the Lakers got Kaman Malwatch with their first. I think I'm just going to add shooting and go with Will Riley, who's I would normally have higher, but I guess just how the draft went, he fell a little bit. But I think this is one of the highest potential guys in the draft. Really needs to add weight. That's going to be the biggest thing for him. But I think he's a lot better of a shooter than the numbers indicate. I think he's he's super streaky, where he'll catch fire at certain points, and you kind of hope you can see those sustained hot streaks where he can do that multiple times in a game and kind of be a microwave bench scorer for you immediately. And not that the Hawks necessarily need offense, but I think going best player available is still kind of where they're at. But I am high on the Hawks going forward. Really fun team. Really fun team. The Pacers, another fun team. Desperately need defense, and unfortunately for them, it doesn't look like there's much here. But Miles Turner, his future is kind of in the air with his contract expiring, and I think you do need to replace that. And I'm gonna go Janai Broom, which I think a lot of people do think he's not an NBA player, but in my opinion he is. Was one of probably the second best player in college basketball this year, and I think something I buy with him is that he's improved significantly over his time in college, which I believe he started at Morehead State and then worked his way up to Auburn and become one of the best players in the country. But my biggest thing with him is I think a lot of people think he's primarily a back-to-the-basket guy, which in college he was, but I think he can shoot the three decently, and I think as a shot blocker he's really talented. My biggest thing with him is he going to be a power forward or center in the NBA, which I don't know. I think the Pacers with Siakam and Nesmith, they have good size to be able to run a smaller lineup, but I think the Janai will, as a passer as well, I think he's kind of Sabonis-esque in a lot of ways, and as a shot blocker, I think he can replace some of that Miles Turner production. The Thunder with their second first-round pick, I think It feels very Thundery to go Walter Clayton. And Walter Clayton, like, amazing March Madness, and has propelled himself to be an actual NBA prospect, first round prospect, I mean. One of the best shooters in the draft, and with this Thunder team, I think you kind of have to look to the future and prepare for the departure of guys like Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins. And I think he can kind of fill the role of those guys, but just as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter and kind of this off-the-dribble creator. You kind of hope he turns into the Jordan Clarkson of this team. And then off the bench, you have Nikola Topic, Jace Richardson, and Walter Clayton, which provide some really fun offensive creation, both playmaking-wise and shooting-wise. Now the Magic, who I think everyone has known they've needed offense and shooting for a while. So for me, it's Danny Wolf, who is this big 7-footer, played power forward in college, but he'll be a center in the NBA, and he's a really talented player, and I think the turnovers are a big issue with his game. I think you do worry about what that turns into, but shooting the ball, he's very far along as a 7-footer, and as a playmaker, he's very would be one of the better playmaking bigs in the NBA right away. For the Magic specifically, you kind of hope he turns into a Brook Lopez on offense, where he's a stretch, legit good stretch 5. But I think there's more to him. I think his best outcome would be not in Orlando, but I think for Orlando they would take the shooting and the upside of a guy like him. Now the Nets, who I don't know why they have this many picks. Like, there's no way they keep them all. I'd be shocked if they did. I think most people would. There's not really a young guy. Like, the Nets are in a point where they need to just go, get potentially good guys that are young. So I'm going to go Adu Thiero, who is one of my favorite players this draft. I think he's such a talented defender and such a great athlete. And I've said this before, he reminds me of Jalen Williams on the Thunder. And if he can reach that ever, you were so happy with that. Absolutely, home run swing if you get that. But as an athlete, he's just both vertically, horizontally, speed, he's phenomenal, and the shot's going to be the biggest thing for him. I think he shot 28% this year, but yeah, you kind of just hope that develops, which is the story with a lot of NBA prospects. But other than that, I think he's really far along, both as a defender and offensively. And off the dribble, being limited with his jump shot does limit him, but being able to get downhill off the dribble and being able to cut well, you're really hoping that jump shot comes along and you might have a legit, maybe not star, but really good player on your hands. The Nets, again, Nets just make me mad. Why do they have all these, man? There's no good reason, and I don't really have a fit I love here, so I'm just gonna go with someone I really like and maybe best player available, which is Tyrese Proctor. And he has developed into a really good shooter over his time in college, which 2 years ago, his freshman year, he got talked about as being a draftable guy, and the biggest thing with him was his playmaking. And right now, if you look at him, his biggest thing is his playmaking. It's his shooting. But I think he has a lot more as a playmaker than the numbers show. And how that Duke team was, it was kind of by committee, where everyone was kind of creating for each other, so no one really had insane numbers in terms of assists. It was more everyone helping each other. But you're kind of hoping he turns into, well, I'm higher on him, so I think he could be a legit star. But I think as a ball handler, he's good. I don't know if he'll be a point guard or a shooting guard in the NBA, but I think as a playmaker and a shooter, he is someone I would not want to miss on. Now the Celtics, who in my opinion need to add a backup big to kind of replace Al Horford, as his time in the NBA it's almost up. And for that, I'm going to go with Ryan Kalkbrenner, who was one of the best defenders and shot blockers in college. And I think adding someone who has that experience to the Celtics, who are obviously contending right now, really helps them out. Yeah, you hope the jump shot comes along, but it's not. I say that about every player, really, because it's such a coveted thing in the NBA, but as he is right now, he'll be a good NBA player. And as a screener, as a roller, like he averaged 19 points, which is really, really impressive. And I believe he had a 40-point game this year, which is impressive. But my biggest takeaway with him is the defense and the shot blocking. And I'm quite high on what he could be in the NBA. Not as like a star, but I think he's one of the guaranteed guys that's gonna be an NBA player. Okay, the Suns, who I would go JT Toppin, but he is not declaring for the draft this year. So I'm going to go with Alex Carabin, who obviously the Suns' future is up in the air, but I'm going to assume they're going to try and compete still. So I'm going to go with the best NBA player, right? That would be the best NBA player coming in. To me, that's Alex Carabin, and I think he's really talented as a shooter. I'm not sure the shooting numbers necessarily indicate that with this year, but I think in general it does. I think as a playmaker, he's a lot better than 2.8 assists a game. I think he's a really good connective piece on offense, and I think you see him going forward as kind of this off-ball shooter, cutter, and connective piece on offense, where kind of just a plug-and-play guy that he'll always have value, and even if he doesn't work out for you, you can trade him, and then he'll get you some picks or some young players or something like that. Now the final pick, the Clippers. To me, it's Todd Pettiford, and I think he will be a good NBA player coming in. Not much to say about his game, really. I think he's a really, really good shooter. I think the handle's really good, and for the Clippers, who are kind of in the in-between of being, well, not really in the in-between, because I think they're a contender this year. They are old, and you're going to see a regression from this team soon. So you need to add some youth, which Todd, who has shown coming into Auburn, can play on good teams right away. And you kind of hope that's what the Clippers get with him. I'm excited of the idea of him learning from James Harden over a couple of years. And defensively, he's gritty. I think he fits just the culture that the Clippers have of gritty, defensively hardworking guys, and you kind of want to add to that core, in my opinion. And I think he's the best thing to fit that culture over there. So here it is. Let me know your thoughts. If any of you have skipped to here, I don't blame you. That's what I do all the time. Any shocks, let me know. Any things you change. Like, comment, share, subscribe. See you.